Hello, friends. So let's continue this learning series. In the previous videos, we covered how the king moves, how the pawns move, and now in this video, I want to cover how the knights move. So let's take a look at it. So sharing my screen. Cool. All right. So let's put a knight on the board. B1, another knight for black. G8. Let's put a pawn. Two pawns for both sides. Right. All right, cool. So I guess this is enough to demonstrate how a knight would move. So knights usually move like in an L-shaped way. So it's like two squares in the front and then one square to the right or left. So this knight can actually go to this square, C3 square, A3 square, and the D2 square. But since D2 is occupied by its own piece or own pawn, the knight cannot go to D2. That's not possible, but it can definitely go to the two squares which are vacant, right? So um, the knight movement can be described as follows: two squares in the front and one to the right or left. Or alternatively, you can say two squares sideways and then up or down. Here there is no down, so it's just up. But since this square is already occupied by the d2 pawn, uh, this square is not available. Right? Let's move it to knight to c3, and similar thing for this black knight. Two squares in the front, left or right. Two squares on the side, and then one on up or down. So these three are possible squares for the black knight. It can move to e7, f6, or h6. Let's take it to e7. And again, if we try to see where the white knight can go, just visualize it like this. Two squares like this, up, right, and left. And also you can say two squares down, right and left. Right. So we have covered these four squares where the knight can go, and then two squares, and then one for down, right? And then again, two squares up or down. So if I have to call out the squares where the knight can go, then these 8 squares are possible for the knight to go. So it can go to e4, it can go to d5, it can go to b5, it can go to a4, a2, b1, d1, and e2 is occupied by its own pawn, so it cannot go there. But if the pawn was not present, then it could have gone, right? And let's try to okay. So let's say the knight goes to a4, and now let's try to find uh, um, where the black knight can go. Right? So just two squares, left, right. Now by this time, I think we are pretty fluent. Two squares, up, down, two squares, up, down. And since we cannot go two squares to the bottom, these 6 squares are the only squares where the black knight can go. Right? Just use a different color. So the black knight can go either to g8, to g6, to f5, to d5, to c6, and c8. Right. So I can go to c8. The white knight again can, like two squares up, down. Right. So these two squares are possible, and two squares up. There is no down, so that's it. And then two squares to the bottom. There is no left, but to the right. That's it. So these 4 squares are possible for the white knight. And let's say we play the knight to b6. And now this knight can be captured either by the pawn. So remember how the pawn moves or how the pawn captures the enemy piece. So this knight is diametrically opposite to the c7 pawn, right? This pawn. And so this pawn can take the white knight in this fashion. Or there is another way, black can take the white knight. As you can see, the black knight has 4 squares to go, 2 squares left or right, and 2 squares up, 2 squares up, right? So black knight can go to these 4 squares. We'll highlight those squares in yellow: a7, b6, d6, e7. And so it can all go to b6 because b6 is occupied by an enemy piece. So I can capture white's knight on b6 and with the black knight, right? So white plays something like c4, the knight can capture the c4 pawn. So try to visualize it a little bit, but the knight movement, it's easy to describe, but hard to visualize. So try practicing it with a clean board, and I think you should pretty much get how the knight moves. Also keep in mind that if a square where the knight can go, or actually any of your piece can go. So let's say for black cannot put his piece on a square where one of his pieces or pawns already exist, right? So let's say I play the knight to e5. The knight, theoretically, it can go to c4, d3, f3, g4, g6, f7, c6, but it cannot go to d7 because d7 is occupied by its own piece. So it cannot go to d7. It cannot capture its own piece. That's a rule in chess, right? So black piece cannot capture black piece. White pieces cannot capture white pieces. You can only capture the opponent's pieces. So black can capture white's pawn on d3 in this fashion. Let's say it is black's turn to move. Black can capture the pawn on d3, but it cannot capture its own pawn on d7. Okay. So pretty simple to describe, hard to visualize. So maybe some practice is in order. So I think that's it for the night. So practice a bit, and I will see you in the next video. Next video, I will go and cover how the bishops move.